Okay, we're live.
We'll call this council meeting to order at 6 p.m. First of all, I need a motion for the adoption of the minutes, please.
Resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held at City Hall on May 25th, 2021 be adopted as circulated.
Moved by Councillor Buds and seconded by Councillor Espy. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. We have a delegation this evening. Tracy Asham from the Portage la Prairie School Board is here to present on Bill 64. Welcome, Tracy.
There we go. We're unmuting and getting on the video. Thanks for allowing us to do this presentation. And here in the boardroom office, we have our board chair, Rod Brownlee, Penny Verway, trustee, Pam Garnham, who is helping me with all this technology stuff, which I'm lost with, and our superintendent, Todd Cuddington. And we do have some of our trustees on Zoom as well.
Well, welcome everybody, and Tracy, the floor is yours. We're all ears.
So, just in the interest of time, you know that our PowerPoint presentation was emailed to you, so you can listen to that and watch that at your leisure. We also sent along some other information, which we feel is really important for you to examine. We sent along the hard copy. I'm just going to see if I can pull this out here for a second. Sent along the hard copy of our public, but you'll have it, or actually Diane has it, and Pam wind-zipped it to her, so whatever that is. But Diane does have it, so I'm sure she sent it to you. But we just sent this along because it gives a snapshot of the successful innovative programs and initiatives, as well as the well thought out capital projects that the Portage la Prairie School Division has undertaken to meet the needs of students, their families, and their community, this community. We also have included our No to Bill 64 pamphlet that succinctly highlights our concerns about the impact of this bill on our community. And we included the facts or myths versus facts sheet that summarizes some of the misinformation being used by the government to incite fear and gain support for regressive changes to the education system. It also summarizes some of the facts that represent our viewpoints on some complex issues, including the sometimes contentious property tax, education property taxes. As mentioned in this myth and fact sheet, you will see that the suggestion that a comprehensive tax commission should be undertaken to look at all tax revenue and sources, portioned assessments, and provincial assessment of property values. If you could take the time to review that and note how our mutual interests may be impacted by Bill 64 and other bills, of course. Notwithstanding, though, we don't feel that we should allow property tax debates to divide locally elected officials, and prevent local voices for local choices from working together to achieve and protect our mutual benefits to our community. We should be strengthening our partnerships with one another. It is vital for the survival and success of our diverse and vibrant community. School facilities, gyms, playgrounds, and sports fields are utilized by the broader community for a variety of non-school activities. Education does matter to everyone, and costs related to local crime prevention, healthcare, homelessness, family services, and even library services all depend on how educated our community is. The increasing, improving numbers of graduates from Portage la Prairie School Division over the years bodes well and gives hope for our community's future successes. With this reality in mind, we are asking for your help in ensuring that we do not stand by and allow for the dissolution of local decision-making authority in favor of politically appointed centralized decision makers with no vested interest in our community. This erosion of grassroots democracy is worrisome, and if unopposed, could even set the stage for further measures that would limit or control local government authority. On behalf of the Portage la Prairie School Division Board of Trustees and on behalf of our shared constituents, we are respectfully and strongly requesting that you join us in vocal opposition to Bill 64. Please do not hesitate to call, comment, or contact us. Solidarity is essential for a clear message that centralizing takes away from local economy and local autonomy. We need to speak up, speak out, and reach out. Thank you on behalf of Portage la Prairie School Division Board of Trustees.
Thank you, Tracy. I'm going to open it up for questions from council for you. Are there any questions? Councillor Buds and then Councillor Meyer.
Thank you very much for your presentation this evening. Obviously, this bill has created concern amongst Manitobans. I was wondering, obviously we're fully aware of where the Portage School Division Board stands on this issue, but I was wondering if you could speak to the education reform document that came out. Are there portions of that document that the school division does support and some of the findings that came out of that report? What portions of it are ones that you do see value in?
I can take that, Brent, if it's okay. It's Rod Brownlee. When we look at the legislation, there's not much in there that is favorable. When you look at the report that came out, what the report suggested was that, yes, we should do some amalgamation, not get rid of school boards, but there should be some amalgamation, and that parents should have a larger role. If parents can have a larger role, that would be great. Our concern with that, Brent, is that it hasn't worked over the last number of years, and we've tried, and every school division has tried. When we look at the taxation part, and that's a different bill, but when we look at that, it's all tied together. We have no problem with looking at a different tax way of financing education. I mean, if we had to go to a system like health, which is general revenue, then that wouldn't be a problem as long as the local area is given some say in that. What I see coming out of Bill 64 is that's not going to happen. Have I answered your question, Brent?
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Meyer, you had a question?
I did. Maybe not so much a question, maybe. I just wanted to state, first of all, Trustee Asher, thank you so much for presenting to council. With a little bit of history in the division, I certainly understand the discourse that Bill 64 has brought. Maybe a little under the radar. I know the work your board does specifically for the local economy, and I am well aware of the programs that exist specifically because of the local autonomy that we as a division, or you as a division, have had over the last number of years. And the ability of the individual teachers and administrators and so on to be able to implement those programs. So as one, and I certainly can't speak for anybody else around the table, but as one, I certainly support your position on Bill 64. And I really feel strongly that we do need to have some, whether it's an amended perspective. Again, I don't agree with everything that's in the bill. I agree with some things, but that we have some perspective where we still have some local authority to make some decisions based on the needs. I'm not a big fan of the regional model. That's just me personally, but I certainly respect where you're coming from. We always did talk about a different model in regards to the funding. I mean, I could certainly live with that, but to be able to take it out of the hands of the local elected people and go to a regional model just doesn't sit well with me. So as one, I certainly support your position and will certainly do what I can on my behalf to help going forward. So once again, thank you guys for coming and presenting.
Thank you, Preston. That's the kind of support that we were looking for. someone, as you have been on board before, someone who knows what goes on locally. And I'm sure that all of the other councilors know what happens locally, and the things that we've sent over, please take a look at, and if you're not sure.
Councillor Draycott, you had a question?
Thank you, Worship. I was just curious, thank you very much for coming this evening and sharing some information with us. Whereabouts are we in the process with this bill?
The bill is stalled right now. The NDP stalled it. The Conservatives tried to have it pushed through in this sitting, but it has been postponed. We expect the second reading will come about, at least the committee for second reading will come about in either the end of October to early December. And at that, there are 300 people who are lined up, 400 now, 400 people who are lined up to speak to this bill. And I would think that a majority of them will speak in opposition. What we're hoping is that some changes can be made.
You can sign up for speaking to the bill in whenever they put that out in November or December. So the more people that sign up and speak against Bill 64, the better it will be.
Further questions from council? Councillor Draycott?
Sorry, I guess a follow-up question. So we don't anticipate any changes to our school board or our school system for the 2021-2022 year then?
No, there'll be no changes. What they have said is that effective July 1st, 2022, school boards will be gone and they will implement what they have decided they will implement at that point, which means changing things totally in terms of who is running things. It's going to be centralized in Winnipeg.
School divisions will be gone. The school
Yeah,
boards,
no,
right?
it's school divisions will be gone.
Yeah.
We are being amalgamated, but not as a school division with Pine Creek. Yeah, it's just an area, a region.
Other questions from council? Council Knox?
Not a question. I'm quite familiar with Bill 64 and the opposition to it. Just to thank you so much for coming to present, but I thought since I had a public forum with school representatives here, just a shout out to all of our educators this past year in Portage la Prairie and surrounding areas in Manitoba for going above and beyond. So thank you, and I hope they have the ability to continue to do that for years to come. So thank you.
Thank you. We will pass that on to our teachers, to our staff. It's important that people say that.
Yes, yeah.
Further questions from members of council? Okay, well, seeing none, Tracy and everybody else that's there, I just want to thank you very much for taking time to present. I know there's a lot of discussion going on in the community right now. I've heard from parents and taxpayers concerned about that loss of a local say, that local control. And I think that any of us that get to go in the schools every so often see the phenomenal work that's being done, often in very challenging situations. And we really want to see that kind of work continue. By having a good local educational system, it really builds our community, and it's very, very important to the city of Portage and our residents. So certainly we'll be reading this over, and I think if you get a chance to present, I think a lot of the public is looking for information. The information's been pretty limited coming from government right now. So any new information would be very helpful to those parents and just taxpayers that are looking for some answers. So again, thank you very much for coming out and presenting this evening.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, we have a number of public hearings this evening. We'll open the public hearing for variation PC 3321. This is for Rempel at 108 16th Street Northwest. Is there anyone here to speak to the hearing? Entertain a motion to close the hearing, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Be it resolved, and I so move that the public hearing for variation PC 33-21 for rental at 108 16th Street Northwest now be closed.
Moved by Councillor Meyer and seconded by Councillor Buds. All those in favor? And that's carried.
Okay, Council, in front of you, as was alluded to, file number PC 33-21 from the Planning and Economic Development Committee. The issue is to vary one side yard requirement of 4.6 meters with no attached garage or carport is there to be reduced to 2.75 or 2.176, sorry, meters. Alternatives as usual to approve the variation or of course maybe to deny the variation. The background, quite simply, is Ethan and Bethany Rempel are applying for a variation order to allow one side yard requirement of 4.6 meters when there's no attached garage or carport to be reduced to 2.176 meters. They'd like to construct a new single-family dwelling on the property and would like to center it on the infill property. There is a site plan there for your perusal. As well, City Council has approved many similar requests in the past, and those references are there for your reference as well. So the building is in R1 or a residential single family zone. The application has been circulated to various city departments. There have been no concerns. And of course, the public notices have been sent to all properties within, all property owners within 100-meter radius, and there's been no concerns or objections. Okay, so it's the administrative recommendation, and I so move that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the variation request of Ethan and Bethany Rempel to vary one side yard requirement of 4.6 meters with no attached garage or carport to be reduced to 2.176 meters at the property known as 108 16th Street Northwest, which is legally described as Lot 552, Plan 33 in the parish of Portage la Prairie.
Moved by Councillor Meyer and seconded by Councillor Buds. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. We'll open the public hearing for variation PC 3521. This is for McGibbon at 1760 Saskatchewan Avenue West. Is there anyone here to speak to the hearing?
This is Daniel McGibbon. I'm just here if there's any questions, if councilors have any comments or questions about it, and I can answer that you might not have. But other than that, I'll just stay quiet.
Okay, thank you. Were there any questions from council? Councillor Draycott?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a clarification. I know it says that you're looking to have your parking lot just in the front. In that area, any of the businesses, I think, have their staff parking behind their buildings. So you would be eliminating any staff parking and they would be parking in the front as well, correct?
Is this more directed at me or directed at the planner? The client or the planner?
Well, whoever could answer that question for me, I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, we located all the parking in the front versus in the back. It just created more space for the parking layout, and the client wanted the option to have a drive-through attached to the building, so that would be best located to the rear of the building, and locating that to the rear made any parking to the rear a little more complicated, so we kept all the parking in front.
Okay, any further questions? No. Need a motion to close the public hearing?
Be it resolved, and I so move that the public hearing for variation PC 35-21, McGibbon Aiken at 1760 Saskatchewan Avenue West now be closed.
Moved by Councillor Meyer and seconded by Councillor Buds. All those in favor? And that's carried.
Okay, Council, as you've heard, it's from the Planning and Economic Development Committee, file number PC 35-21, a request for a variation. So the issue right now is to vary the rear yard requirement of 7.5 meters to be reduced to 3.4 meters. There is a map and a metric site plan there, of course, for your reference. So the background, as you've heard, Daniel McGibbon and Andrew Aiken are applying for a variation order to vary the rear yard requirement of 7.5 reduced to 3.4 meters. They'd like to build, or they'd like the building to be shifted to the rear of the lot, so it'll be new construction, obviously, to allow for all parking to be on site and in front of the building. The applicant owner would like to construct a new 3-unit strip mall on the site. In the past, a similar variance has been approved. Your minute references are there for your reference as well. The application has been circulated to various city departments. There have been no concerns, and public notices have been sent to all property owners with a 100-meter radius, and there have been no objections. So with that said, it's the administrative recommendation, and I so move that the council of the city of Portage la Prairie approve the variation request of Daniel McGibbon, Andrew Aiken, to vary the rear yard requirement of 7.5 meters to be reduced to 3.4 meters at the property known as 1760 Saskatchewan Avenue West, which is legally described as lots 338, 339, 340, Plan 15, PLTO, and RL 57 and 58 in the parish of Portage la Prairie.
Moved by Councillor Meyer and second by Councillor Buds. Any questions, comments on the motion? Councillor Draco?
Sorry, I'm going to ask another question. Perhaps Mr. Brooks would be able to answer. My only concern with this would be, do we absolutely have adequate parking here for 3 businesses and staff of the business? I'd just hate to see parking overflow to 18th Street. That's a fairly busy street at the moment. So just if I could have some clarification that we absolutely do have enough parking for 3 businesses and staff.
I will try and answer your question as per the bylaw. Keeping in mind that this is just a shell of a building, they don't have full tenants in it yet. There is requirements for so many parking stalls, for so much floor space, or so many seating areas, depending on what it is. And as the floor spaces sits there now, if they were all retail, there would be enough parking spaces as per the bylaw. If they change that to maybe a restaurant, there may be a requirement for a variation to parking, a small variation for that. But at this time, we do not know what those are. So it does fit as per the bylaw right now. Hopefully that answers your question.
Any further questions? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. We open the public hearing for variation extension PC 3621. This is for Paramount Investment Corporation, east of 13th Street Northwest between 5th and 6th Avenue. Is there anyone here to speak to the hearing? Nobody registered? No. Need a motion to close the public hearing?
Be right there. Be resolved, and I so move that the public hearing for variation extension PC 36-21 for Paramount Investment Corporation east of 13th Street Northwest between 5th and 6th Avenue now be closed.
Moved by Councillor Meyer and seconded by Councillor Buds. All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried.
Okay, Council, in front of you from the Planning and Economic Development Committee, file number PC 36-21 is a request for an extension to the variation. So the issue is to allow an extension of the original variation of Paramount Investment Corporation to vary the following, which is the north side yard requirement when on a corner lot of 3.6 meters to be reduced to 1.5 meters, and the rear yard requirement of 7.5 to be reduced to 2.7 meters for 6 two-family dwellings to be constructed. The original plan, I believe, is there for your perusal as well, and the site plan as well. So background, the application, of course, had requested an extension to the original variation order, which was passed back on resolution number, or by resolution number 2020-2090 on June 22nd, 2020 for an additional 12 months. The Planning Act section states that a variance order will expire and cease to have any effect if it's not acted upon within 12 months of the date of the decision. So a board or a council or planning commission may extend the deadline under a subsection for an additional period not longer than 12 months if an applications received before the initial deadline. Deadline was June 22nd, and of course, we are June 14th. So as per site plan for PC 3620, the applicant indicated they were going to build duplexes on the property. That has changed, and they've now decided they'd like to build a sixplex on this property, but still maintain the north side yard and rear yards per the original variation request. As per attached, the original variation order on this matter, administration, they have no concerns with the application or extension to the original variation order, and as such would recommend approval. So it's a recommendation of this committee, and I so move that the council of the city of Portage la Prairie approve the request of Paramount Investment Corporation to extend the original variation order PC 36-20 at the properties on east of 13th Street Northwest between 5th and 6th Avenue, which are legally described as parcels D and H, Plan 21568 PLTO in the parish of Portage la Prairie.
Moved by Councillor Meyer and seconded by Councillor Buds. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. Thank you. We'll move into committees. First up is Finance, Legislative, and Property Committee. Councillor Buds, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have an item in new business, but nothing under my committee report for this evening.
Thank you. City Planning and Economic Development Committee, Councillor Meyer, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. The City Planning and Economic Development Committee has nothing to report in this portion, but there's one new item down in the, further in the agenda.
Thank you. Community Services Committee, Councillor Draycott, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Nothing for Community Services Committee this evening.
Thank you. And Waterworks Committee, Councillor Wall.
Thank you, Your Worship. Nothing for the Waterworks Committee at this time.
Thank you. And Transportation Committee, Councillor Esty.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Transportation Committee has nothing to report.
And Councillor Knox, Public Safety Committee.
Thank you, Your Worship. Nothing from Public Safety at this portion of the meeting.
Thank you. We have no deferred business this morning, this evening. However, we have a number of items of new business. First up is the amended tax levy bylaw. This is 21-8722. And this is the Finance Committee. Councillor Buds, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. And the item we have for consideration here tonight is to take a look at our 2021 payment deferral program for city taxpayers and customers impacted by the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. And so in 2020, if you recall, we did provide some financial assistance to homeowners and to citizens to just have a little bit more time to pay their taxes and their utility bills. There was no application process for taxpayers, and many did use this option. And so we did have a discussion at council and wondered if 2021, due to the ongoing pandemic, would be another year that we took this into consideration. And it was decided that's something that we would like to do. And so that's what this item is here for tonight, to discuss and to approve. And that is basically to implement the 2021 tax and utility bill payment deferral options. So for the tax side of things, taxes are normally due on July 31st. The taxpayers needed to have further time to pay their 2021 taxes will be allowed to pay them up to October 31st without penalty or charges. And so again, that is no charges and no application required to do so. On the utility bill side of things, customers' utility bills are regularly due 90 days after the bill is received. Any payments due between June 1st and October 31st can be paid by October 31st deadline without penalty or charge. And we'll continue to add overdue utility payments to property taxes 1 month after they are due, as this process is needed to alert landlords or any issues for tenant payments of utility bills. So you might wonder what's the impact of the city, and it isn't significant. This is still something we can manage our cash flows through, resulting from these deferred payments. So it's not something that is going to be terribly cumbersome on the financial side for us, but we definitely did want to offer this extension to those that need it in 2021. It was used last year, and we are expecting it to be used again this year. And we just encourage people to, again, if they need to, reach out to the city. Again, no application required. So it is a recommendation of your committee, and I so move that bylaw 21-8722, being an amended bylaw of the city of Portage la Prairie to authorize a levying and raising of property taxes for school and municipal purposes for the year ending December 31st be given first reading. And it be further resolved that the council of the city of Portage la Prairie approve a payment deferral option for 2021 utility bills to allow to October 31st, 2021 for full payment of any bills due between June 1st and October 31st, 2021 without penalty or charge.
Moved by Councillor Buds and seconded by Councillor Espy. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. Our next item of new business is subdivision for Portage la Prairie Condominium Corporation number 10. And this is city planning and economic development. Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council, in front of you, a new business from the Planning and Economic Development Committee. There is a proposal to subdivide. You'll see that there's subdivision map 1 for the Portage Condominium Corporation number 10 and subdivision map number 2 for the Portage Condominium Corporation number 10. So the issue is to consideration of the application to subdivide 3.62 acres from the present holdings of 11.56 acres on Lot 1 Plan number 40792 PLTO in RL 69 and 70 in the parish of Portage la Prairie. So the alternative is to approve the application, to amend any part of the proposed plan of subdivision, or to deny the application. So the background in the analysis, the applicant, which is Portage la Prairie Condominium Corporation number 10, proposes to subdivide 3.62 acres as shown on the phasing unit A on the attached map from the present holdings of 11.56 acres. This application was previously approved under SD 4550-14-7320. You'll notice that there's a council resolution 5916 on April the 25th of 2016. So what happened is the approved application did expire before it was registered at the land titles office. So the applicant is reapplying. The application is consistent with the development plan and meets the provincial criteria for a minor subdivision. And what this does, council, is it enables it to be fast-tracked, be given conditional approval without requiring an interdepartmental circulation or planning report as per section 125.1 of the Planning Act. But council approval is required prior to completing other conditions in the subdivision process. So the Community Regional Planning conditionally approved the subdivision subject to a written confirmation from Manitoba Hydro that an easement agreement has been entered to, or that an easement is not required. And secondly, a written confirmation from Bell MTS that a right-of-way agreement has been entered, or that an easement is not required as well. So it's the administrative recommendation, and I so move that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the subdivision of Lot 1, Plan 40792 PLTO and RL 6970, the parish of Portage la Prairie, into 3.62 acre lot from 11.56 acres.
Moved by Councillor Meyer and second by Councillor Buds. Any questions, comments on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. Our next item of new business is the award tender of a new maintenance building, and this is Waterworks Committee. Councillor Wall, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, the issue is to award the contract for the design build of a new utility maintenance building. We have three alternatives: to not award the contract, to award it to PCL as the highest rated bidder without geothermal, and to award to PCL as the highest rated bidder with geothermal. The design and construction of a new utility maintenance building was approved as a 2021 utility project to accommodate the facility maintenance, lift station maintenance, waterworks, and utility administration departments, including staff, workspace, and storage. The new facility will require a minimum of 7,300 square feet of workspace, yard works, and 2,000 square feet for washrooms, staff, lunchroom, and offices. Excuse me. The cost for this project, based on preliminary estimates, is $5.3 million. 52% of this cost is Isip grant funded, with the remaining 48% to be drawn from the utility reserve. A request for qualifications was issued in March and 4 submissions were received and evaluated. 3 companies were shortlisted to proceed to the request for proposal stage. But as this project is to be implemented, implemented as a design build, the RFP identified minimum building requirements in terms of space and building materials, but left the overall design and layout to the bidders. Bidders were also asked to identify areas of environmental sustainability and submit optional pricing to include geothermal heating systems. Points were awarded at 70% for technical merit and 30% for price. Within the technical section, areas such as mechanical and electrical systems, as well as sustainability features, were more heavily weighted to ensure emphasis was on the more critical features of this building. The RFP closed on May 31st, 2021, and the submissions rated as follows. So you see a table there for the points awarded for a traditional build with traditional heating cooling systems, PCL being the highest rated. And option B, again, PCI or PCL is the highest rated company at 87.8 points for a system with all the bells and whistles. PCL Construction was the highest rated bidder for option A without geothermal and B with geothermal. They provided the most technically superior bid, which included a quality building which provide a functional space that administration is confident will suit the intended purpose. Sustainable features include LED lighting, motion sense lighting, light harvesting, light modulation, low flush toilets, energy efficient HVAC equipment, and use of recycled materials during construction. Option A is indicated to provide 44% reduction in energy use and 42% reduction in CO2 emissions compared to a typical build. Option B with geothermal heating and cooling has a significant price increase. However, the long-term reduction of natural gas costs should be considered, as should the benefit of reduction of carbon footprint. This option is projected to reduce energy consumption by 86% and CO2 emissions by 96%. The implementation of geothermal is in line with goals 4 and 5 of the 2019 Eco West report to reduce energy consumption and utilize alternative energy sources to reduce greenhouse gases produced by corporate emissions. The payback period for the geothermal system has not yet been determined. However, it's expected to be lengthy. The payback period would be determined as part of the energy efficiency assessment to be done by PCL Construction to support the city's application for grant funding from Efficiency Manitoba. Park West Project's proposal was missing a few key components which were requested in the RFP. The evaluation team noted inadequate ventilation rates to meet code, no energy recovery system on ventilation exhaust, inadequate parking stalls, and half the requested staff lockers. The bid price would have to be adjusted higher to account for these items. The approved budget of $5.3 million must also account for $300,000 for engineering and bid development fees, putting the estimated total based on PCL's prices at $4,865,577 without geothermal, or $5,325,113 with geothermal. PCL Construction indicated they have several cost-saving options to present if they're awarded the contract. However, the potential price reduction is not known. There's also no contingency allowance in the bids, which should be considered. It's important to remember that 52% of the total is Isip grant eligible, and as the estimated completion of this project is the end of April 2022, any cost increases to this project beyond the current estimate could be accounted for in the 2022 budget. Administration will also be applying for a grant through Efficiency Manitoba for up to $300,000 and looking into additional grant options. As council has requested that administration request bids for both options, recommendations are being provided for both for council's recommendation or consideration. So there are two motions here. I'll move the second of the two motions, and if that motion is successful, then the other one, I guess, will be moot. I move that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie award the contract for the design build of the new utility maintenance building to PCL Construction with the geothermal heating option for the amount of $5,025,113, including PST, to be paid out of the utility reserve, and the council approve up to $250,000 from the utility infrastructure reserve for contingencies.
Moved by Councillor Wall and seconded by Councillor Draycott. Any questions or comments on the motion? Councillor Budds?
Thank you, Worship. Just we're undergoing a lot of construction over the next number of years here, and we've got lots going on to the waste water plant as well as the water pollution control facility. And can management provide council with some understanding of where we are going in this method? I know we've got a consultant's report in the past about reducing our carbon footprint and the green theme, but I would like to know what other buildings that we're currently considering or under construction have the methodology of geothermal heating.
Yes, through your worship to Councillor Budds, I believe the question is, do we have other buildings that we're considering environmentally efficient options such as geothermal in the future?
Yeah, either are or have committed in our existing construction commitments that we've made to date.
So we have several buildings, utility buildings in the future. Obviously, the water pollution control facility, which will be a P3 component. So I'm sure it's up to the P3 provider and how they build that building, and there could be energy efficient components, including geothermal. Now, in the water pollution control facility, we do have cogen as part of the bid. So they'll be using some of the off-gassing to actually power and heat the waste product in the LRAR. In terms of the design for the water treatment plant, I know there's energy efficient components to it. I don't believe there's any geothermal type heating. That's all I can speak to. So this is the only building that I'm aware of in our organization, obviously, that would potentially have geothermal heat, but there's always consideration to environmentally sustainable options in future builds. I will comment in the report, if I could add it in, Councillor Budds, it does say that the payback on the geothermal is lengthy. I just want to be clear that when we say lengthy, we don't have an exact figure, but we're projecting based on today's prices and anticipated inflationary increase, what we know about carbon taxes, that term would be over 20 years. So I think it's important that council understands that when they consider this option. When administration puts forward these recommendations, we put forward options that are straightforward with traditional builds, but council should understand if they go forward with this option, it's because that they are committed to a sustainability mindset for more than necessarily a payback. I don't want council making a decision thinking that there's going to be an instantaneous or very short payback. I want to make sure council understands that term is over 20 years.
Thank you, Mr. Pito. Just further to that, I agree. I mean, it's very proven, and there's lots of studies done that the payback on geothermal isn't a quick payback. And you're right, it's about the method of sustainability in the long term. So I have another question in terms of the bid. There's commentary on how PCL could potentially bring forth other cost savings if awarded. That is something that there's no other additional information on there. That's kind of in the report. I'm just wondering why a proponent would put that in there, but not bring it forward in their bid and therefore reduce the price of their bid versus telling us that without details. Do you have any more information on that, Nathan?
Yeah, it's through your worship to Councillor Budds, it's somewhat tricky in the procurement model that we use, and most municipalities, they have to bid to spec, the specs that we have put forward, and we put forward our best ideas. But when they're in the actual designing, they may look and say, wow, if they did it this way, we could find efficiencies in the process, but they still have to put a bid that's to our spec. So what happens when you award a contract to, let's say in this case, PCL, what they will do is say, okay, this is what you wanted for spec, this is the price we quoted, but if you change these natures and it's acceptable to us, the city, you could see cost savings in effect. So I know it's unusual, they say we have cost saving ideas, but they don't lay them out, but it's because they're required to cost it to the spec that we've put forward in the bid.
Thank you. And just my comments on it are that I do support sustainable building. I do support any effort that we can recycle and reuse energies. But I do not support necessarily this recommendation. I feel that the payback is long, and I think during the construction process, that's why I asked the question. I think there's going to be numerous points in this construction and all of those going forward when we have that conscious view to sustainability, that we'll be able to do that without geothermal and the extra almost $500,000 expense. So that's my comments on this motion.
And Councillor Wall, you had a question or comment?
Yeah, I think it's incumbent on this council to be seen as forward-thinking and environmentally conscious. I have some experience with geothermal. I have it in my home. I've had it for 13 years with no problems whatsoever. And I think I'm saving money year by year and eventually paying for it. And I think this also meets with our goals that we set out in our strategic plan when we were first elected. So I support this motion.
Other questions or comments on the motion? Councillor Draycott?
Thank you, Your Worship. I was just wondering for clarification if there was a cap on the Isip grant funding, whether we go with one project or the other. Is there any sort of cap to that funding?
Through your worship to Councillor Draycott, no. We had a notional money that we have been said this building could cost to our funding partners, and they approved that. Both projects would be eligible for 52% funding.
Further questions, comments on the motion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. Thank you.
That's all I have, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Wall. Next item of new business is the Animal Control Bylaw 21-8721, and this is Public Safety Committee. Councillor Knox, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. As you stated, we are talking about our Animal Control Bylaw tonight. Under the direction of Council, administration has completed a comprehensive review of our current animal bylaw. It was time for this for sure. And so there's many changes that we're looking at making. And if these changes happen, then what will happen is a new bylaw will be put in place and the old version will be repealed. So along with some basic wording amendment updates, the main changes being proposed are as follows. The maximum allowed number of dogs, cats, or combination of both has been increased from 3 to 4. The process for excess animal permit hearings has changed. These applications will now be heard by the same committee of council that holds dangerous animal hearings. The process for adopting animals out of the animal retention facility has been added and laid out in the bylaw. And the ability to appeal a decision after a dangerous dog owner has not complied with the original conditions for release has been removed. So I so move that the bylaw number 21-8721, being the animal control bylaw for the city of Portage la Prairie, be now given first reading.
Moved by Councillor Knox and seconded by Councillor Wall. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried.
Thank you.
We have no old business this evening, so council is adjourned at 6:49 p.m. and we'll move right into committee. We'll call committee to order at 6:49. First up is Finance Committee. Councillor Buds, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a small item that we brought forward to the next council meeting and open for discussion here this evening is our account collection policy. And it's been some time since we've looked at it. It was 2014. And now we've got a different update. So some of the quick little things that we're looking to change is some of our collection methods. And so using small claims court action and enhanced collection services for fire rescue services provided for highway accidents involving vehicles not covered by Manitoba Public Insurance. Write-off authorizations, providing different levels of authorization on who can do those things, and allowance accounts. So more detail on assessing allowance account balance adequacy. So just some basically housekeeping on this policy, and I'm open for any questions as it relates to those changes I'll be bringing forth next meeting.
Okay,
Seeing
thank you,
none,
Councillor Buds.
seeing none, that does conclude my report.
Thank you. City Planning and Economic Development, Councillor Meyer, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Nothing formal on the agenda for the City Planning and Economic Development Committee, but I would like to just take this one moment. I know last council meeting we had a brief shout out in regards to not only the Portage sign wars, but obviously the burger days as well. And why would I bring that up? Because I think anything that affects the community needs, in a positive sense, needs to certainly be out there. And although we did thank the Chamber and the Tourism Committee and those involved, I just wanted to thank the citizens of Portage for supporting our local restaurants from all intents and purposes. And we won't know the numbers for a little while, and the winner just yet. But for all intents and purposes, it was really, really well received. It was a great diversion for everybody that was going on at the time. And I know I heard and read probably hundreds of comments in regards to our local restaurants. And it was just really fabulously put together. So congratulations to everybody involved. And of course, thanks again to the citizens for that kind of support. And that's it, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Meyer. Councillor Draycott, Community Services, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't have anything on agenda, but I do want to call on a couple of people this evening. I was hoping that Ms. Victoria Espy would be able to have a conversation with us about the going-ons at PCRC. I know that they're always busy, but if she has time for a quick update, that would be great.
Thank you, Councillor Draycott. Good evening, everybody. I just have two items to highlight tonight. Today, PCRC launched a labor market needs assessment survey. So the PCRC is completing a labor market needs assessment of the city and rural municipality of Portage la Prairie. This project aims to better understand local employment conditions and collaborate with community stakeholders to address local labor market issues and opportunities. We're encouraging all citizens, both employers or residents who work or are looking for work within the city or the RM to complete the survey. And we have a couple of $250 gift certificates for anybody who completes the survey will be entered into that draw. The deadline to complete the survey is June 25th, and we're hoping that people can share the social media posts and get the word out that we're doing this survey. The second thing that I would like to note is that we are continuing with our urban Indigenous vaccine clinic. So the vaccine clinic is running on Tuesdays and Wednesdays from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. and it's been tremendously successful so far. I have some updated statistics that were completed on June the 10th. So currently the city of Portage la Prairie is 62% vaccinated. 42%, 42.8%, sorry, have had one dose and 19.2% have 2 doses. We're certainly on the right track. Our clinic has been full every day. As long as our schedule is open, we are fully booked with appointments. So uptake in our community has been really great. So thank you to the city. And if anybody has questions regarding the Urban Indigenous Vaccine Clinic, they're strongly encouraged to call our office. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much for the update on everything happening there. As well, we're nearing the end of the school year, and so I was hoping that Youth Councillor Jacinda Houle would be able to give us an update as to happenings as well.
Yes, so I've been doing a lot of work at PCRC, and I've been helping out. I just recently started helping out at the Urban Indigenous Vaccine Clinic, so I'll be there Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And just last week or 2 weeks ago, maybe, I danced at the quiche for the commemoration for the 215 kids at Kamloops, and then we hosted our own commemoration with Jill Fass and Cornell and Daryl at PCI that same day. Also, last week, Cornell and I did an article for the headliner, and that one is about resources you can use to educate yourself on residential schools and Indigenous history. So if you want to check it out, it's on the headliner website. And right now, I'm working on creating or hosting a virtual event for youth in Portage, or just youth in general. We haven't set an exact date yet, but we would like to have a virtual event including city council members and youth. And yeah, so I'm pretty excited to host that. So hopefully everything works out, and hopefully we get a date set soon. I'll be having a meeting soon I'm hoping to have a meeting soon with Jill Fass to discuss that. Also, right now I'm working on applying for a small grant to, basically what I want is to get a mural in Portage la Prairie to represent missing and murdered Indigenous women. So I'm getting Rachel Templeton to help me with applying for that grant. I've never applied for a grant before, so I'm glad she's helping me. And yeah, that's pretty much all I can remember off the top of my head. So yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Great, thanks so much for the update, and please keep council in the know with your dates when you get them all set in place. And your worship, that is all I have this evening. Thank you.
And I was going to mention in our youth members' spare time, she's the valedictorian and she's graduating at the end of this month from high school. So, yeah. Waterworks Committee, Councillor Wall, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have nothing to report this evening.
Thank you. And Transportation Committee, Councillor Espy.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Transportation Committee has nothing to report.
Thank you. And Councillor Knox, Public Safety.
Thank you, Your Worship. Nothing from Public Safety this evening.
Thank you. So committee is adjourned at 6:57 p.m. Thank you for coming out, everybody.